I walked into that courthouse alone, no lawyer at my side, no entourage, no dramatic entrance. Just me, a borrowed blazer, and a quiet plan I'd been building for years. And I still remember the sound of his laugh. It wasn't loud, not at first, just that sharp little breath through the nose, the kind of laugh someone makes when they're already counting their winnings. He leaned back in his chair, expensive suit, relaxed posture, and I could tell he thought this was over before it even started. In his mind, I was exactly where he'd always believed I belonged. Outmatched, unprepared, and about to be erased. Let me rewind for a second because this didn't start in a courtroom. It started years earlier at a charity event I almost didn't attend. I was younger then, quieter still, figuring out who I was allowed to be in rooms full of confident men with loud voices. That's where I met Daniel Cross. He owned buildings, companies whole blocks of the city. When he shook your hand, he squeezed just a little too hard, like he needed you to feel it. When he talked, people listened because money has a way of amplifying confidence even when it shouldn't. He asked what I did, and I said I worked with documents, fixing things, organizing information. He smiled like that told him everything he needed to know. Low threat, easy role to define. We married fast. Too fast, if I'm honest. He insisted on a prenup, framed it like a favor. Just paperwork, he said, sliding it across the table like a menu. It protects us both. I read every word. I understood exactly what it meant, and I signed it anyway. That decision haunts people when they hear it, but at the time I believed in the version of him I wanted to believe in. I thought love could soften sharp edges. I thought patience was strength. Yeah, that happened. For years, I played the part perfectly. I hosted dinners, smiled at investors, nodded while he explained things I already understood. He talked about zoning loopholes, offshore accounts, shell companies, and never noticed how quiet I got, how still. He thought silence meant ignorance. He never asked why I never asked questions. He never wondered why I could spot inconsistencies in contracts with a single glance. He just assumed I was decoration, and I let him. Because sometimes the safest place to stand is where no one thinks to look. The shift didn't come with screaming or slammed doors, it came with exhaustion. Watching him humiliate waiters. Watching him cut corners that hurt people who couldn't fight back. Watching him come home late smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. And then, one night over takeout containers and half-finished wine, he laughed about pushing tenants out of a building so he could raise the rent. Old people. Fixed incomes. Business is business, he said. Like that, explained everything. Something in me went quiet in a way it never had before. Not hurt, not anger. Clarity. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I went to the guest room, opened my laptop, and logged into an account I hadn't touched in years. I reactivated credentials I'd buried along with an old version of myself, and I started watching him. Really watching. Following patterns, tracing money, reading what he assumed I'd never understand. He thought he was careful. He wasn't careful enough. By the time he filed for divorce, he was already confident. He froze accounts, hired a ruthless attorney. Let me walk into that courtroom alone because he knew exactly what that would look like to everyone else. And when I set my old leather briefcase on the table, I felt every eye in the room dismiss me in real time. Especially his. That little laugh again, like I was a formality. The judge entered. The room stood. Papers shuffled. And then, silence. The judge looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. He said my name. Not my married name. The name I'd left behind. And in that moment the air changed. I stood up straighter. I felt something click into place like muscle memory returning after a long sleep. I told the court I was representing myself under my professional name. His attorney went pale. That was the first crack. When I presented the motion to dismiss the prenup, the room went very still. Fraud, concealment, bad faith. Words that sound abstract until you attach numbers to them. Accounts he claimed were empty. Transfers he swore didn't exist. Money moved days before filing. I watched his face as recognition set in. Not understanding, yet just fear. He kept glancing at his lawyer like this was a misunderstanding that could still be explained away. Then came the audio, and I'll never forget that moment. The way his own voice filled the room, confident, careless, negotiating things he thought would never see daylight. He stared at the speaker like it was betraying him. He asked how I got it. I told him the truth. He recorded himself. Shared cloud. Same password. The one he picked. You can't make this stuff up. His lawyer tried to object. Legal jargon. Technicalities. The judge shut it down fast. Because when someone hands you proof of a crime, you don't argue. Tone, you argue. Damage control. And Daniel knew it. I could see the calculation running behind his eyes, trying to figure out what he could still buy his way out of. During recess, he followed me into the hall. Cornered me by the window overlooking the city he loved to claim. He asked if I was happy. Asked if humiliating him was worth it. Offered me properties. Cash. Anything. He still thought this was a negotiation. That everything has a price. I told him I wasn't interested in his money. That confused him more than anything else. Because he'd never understood why I stayed. He thought I needed him. He never considered the possibility that I chose him. And could unchoose him just as easily. When court resumed, I called one more witness. His former assistant. Young, nervous, honest. She talked about the gift cards, the hidden payments, the woman in Miami, and the things he said when he thought no one important was listening. That I was boring. That I was temporary. That I was just there to make him look stable. He didn't look up once. He didn't need to. The room already knew. The ruling didn't take long. Prenup void. Assets reassigned. Accounts frozen. Referrals made. His chair sat empty when the judge asked for him. He'd left the building. Not dramatically, just gone. Like a man realizing too late that the floor he was standing on had already collapsed. A year later, my office is small. Nothing flashy. Just a desk, a plant that's somehow still alive, and a door with my name on it. I work with people who've been underestimated. Who were told they didn't know enough, weren't strong enough, weren't worth listening to. And every time someone sits across from me and whispers, "I don't think anyone will believe me," I smile a little, because I know exactly how that feels. So here's what I'll leave you with. Silence isn't weakness. Being underestimated isn't a flaw. Sometimes it's camouflage, and the loudest person in the room is usually the one with the most to hide. If you were in my place, would you have settled quietly? Or would you have finished it? Tell me what you think. Was it justice, or was it too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe if you believe stories like this deserve to be told.